But right now, no delay, it is time for the Berkshire Edge on air. BerkshireEdge.com is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always updated with news from South County and sometimes even beyond. Lots of interactive correspondence, of course, on stories with comments from viewers. And the BerkshireEdge.com comes on Robin Hood Radio on Wednesday morning, and we welcome in David and Marcy once again. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. We're admiring the beautiful snow.
Beautiful is indeed.
I haven't been out in it yet, but David has
I've taken
one
kids
child to school and has to
school.
take the other one in
A few minutes.
I look at it this way. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
If you like gray and
Listen, the roads aren't really bad at all.
No.
It wasn't that much.
and if you like
No.
gray and silver, then
Yeah.
you're in business.
Yeah, but anyway, so
I do.
well, we've already had.
I like the white. I like that white.
Yeah,
There's white in there too.
it does make it. It does make it a little brighter.
Yes.
Well, speaking about brighter. Well, I don't know about brighter. Let's get on to the stories. Some of the stories that we're going to select. And folks, when we say some of the stories, we mean some. There are just tons of stories, news stories, lifestyle stories, events, you name it. So we just touch upon a few of them every week. The eventful week, first Monument Mountain Regional High School. The bomb threat, I saw that on your site and passed it along to our listeners yesterday after it popped up on your site and informing people to go there. Just one of those things that it's modern day events.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
terrible. It's so disturbing.
Well, it was apparently unfounded. But it's the high school's been going through a rough patch because they also have been responding to some anti-Semitic threats made against Jewish students.
But this threat
The bomb threat.
came from someone who scrawled Arabic graffiti on a classroom desk, so it's.
Well, it was interpreted.
Well, it was
Yeah.
interpreted, but sources say that the scrawlings meant there's no God but Allah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Which is what is often said in Middle Eastern terrorist attacks. So they took it seriously.
Well, but you do have those stories back to back with that and the middle school with the anti-Semitism. But these are,
Right.
we're talking about South County schools right now, but this is not a problem. Unfortunately, lately over the past several years, that it's just linked to South County or anywhere. It is spread like wildfire.
Right. Now, of course, parents are becoming very upset. I mean, they. Peter Dillon, the superintendent, said that between Friday and Monday he had 30 to 40 phone calls from parents wanting to know if it was safe to send their kids to school. Dillon says he sent his own kid to school. So he obviously feels it is, but he can certainly understand. And, and there were about 15 kids. Usually there are about 15 kids who call their children in sick, but on Tuesday the number had doubled. So there are a lot of parents who are getting nervous.
Well, it's the environment we live in now. It's not terrorism against the United States. It's terrorism from within. And who ever thought? I'll say 20 years ago, probably even 10, maybe 20, 25 years ago, that going to school, an elementary school student or even an early high school student would have to have in the back of their minds, okay, if someone comes in with a gun, where do I go?
Or a bomb.
Or a bomb. Where do I go? I mean, that has never been on the agenda.
And you can imagine the kind of trauma that continues through their whole lives.
Well, and I'll only compare it to when I was a kid in school, and we were warned in school we had to do duck, get under the
Duck and cover.
Yeah,
right?
That
so
was
and
nuclear.
that was bad enough, but never mind. There is no duck and cover anymore for these students.
No, I was talking to someone who lives on my hill, and basically they are in the education business, and they said, you have to think every day about the kid that you know suddenly going off and doing stuff that you just, never recover
Yeah.
from, basically.
Right, that's right.
Anyway, that's
Well, the tools for that are now available. That's the thing.
yeah.
You know?
The tools in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Right.
they go hand in hand. They go hand
They
in hand.
do, I know.
And the adults that are sitting in Washington do no good to help to allay those.
Well, it's
to
almost
allay
as if
this.
there's a right to be to shoot up people after all, because we don't want to take away their guns.
It's a problem that
It's an inherent American right to blast people
Well,
away.
Even if you're not going to take that position, what you essentially have is fomenting outrage and people needing to get attention. So
the tentacles of
it's a way to do
terrorism
it.
and guns spread far and wide, and sometimes they wind up in places that you wouldn't think they would be associated with problems, but they are. And
Well, Connecticut is, of course,
yeah.
the site of the Newtown
Yeah.
massacre.
It's we're living our worst nightmare as a
Yeah.
Yeah,
country.
exactly.
All right, let us go on something a little bit different. Thank goodness.
A little happier story.
Yeah. Beth Robbins was joined by other actors at the Shakespeare and Company.
This was apparently quite an event.
It was, and it was packed at Shakespeare and Company for Beth Robbins, and she read she's actually a teacher at the Montessori school, where one of my kids goes, but her husband died in a tragic automobile accident in Connecticut, actually.
2015.
Yeah, and his middle name was Sprout Man, Meyerowitz, and they were just a beloved couple, and she
and he got the name Sprout Man because he sold sprouts. I mean, healthy
Yes.
sprouts of all kinds.
Yep. Anyway, she has written a book, a memoir, and she read some of it with friends at Shakespeare and Company, and apparently the book is called A Grief Sublime, and it was apparently the performance was packed. It was overflow, kind of honoring her and her late husband, and it was a really heartwarming and heartfelt event. So she's honoring somebody that the community was honoring somebody who was really beloved. So.
All right. Now the next
And
story.
we actually wrote an article about it the week before.
Yeah.
Which we may have mentioned. I think we mentioned it
towards the end.
in our conversation last week. This is a book written mostly in poetry.
Yeah.
And it's apparently a beautiful book. And she had Karen Allen, an audiobook author and audiobook producer and speaker, Allison Larkin, who so they had.
And James Warwick, who's a theatrical producer.
Right.
He was reading too. So it was quite a production.
Right.
And Cynthia Wade as well. So it was a wonderful event.
Well,
I'd like to add something that's not on our list, speaking of productions, because that's a production that already happened. But coming up this Saturday night, there's a wonderful Close Encounters with Music concert at the Mahawi Performing Arts Center in Great Barrington. I have to disclose that I'm chair of the board, so it's shameless promotion. But this is going to be the Borromeo String Quartet, and they are really extraordinary, and it's going to be a terrific concert. I should warn anybody who would like to come that the concert is starting at 5:30 rather than 6, because the Chamber of Commerce has, and here's something else for people to visit, has its annual holiday stroll in Great Barrington that afternoon, and the holiday stroll includes fireworks. Last year, the fireworks took place in the middle of a beautiful piece of music, and the Mahawi is right next door to where the fireworks go off. So this year, we're trying to schedule the concert so the fireworks happen in the middle of the intermission and not in the middle of the concert.
Well, I have a suggestion. Next time, Close Encounters with Music should have the 1812
exactly, and have the fireworks
be kind of the booming of the gums around Moscow.
Right. Well, this will be Beethoven, but it's not the 1812. But anyway, as our reviewer says, the Borromeo String Quartet is known for its edge-of-the-seat performances. And everything that goes into these performances is mind-boggling. I mean, they are reading, they're reading from original texts, and it should be a wonderful concert. 5:30 at the Mahawi on Saturday.
All right.
So there. Thank you for that opportunity.
All right. Another story, which once again it happens during the holiday season, actually more than you think, but it's always a shocker when a fire claims a life.
Yeah, it happened. This couple were in a housing development in Great Barrington, in a rental unit, and they the fellow who died was in a wheelchair and couldn't get out, and his wife was badly injured, but she survived. And sorry that we have to have stories like this around the holidays, but it's just one of those things that seems to happen.
And it stands out more when it's especially when it's around the end of the year, and it goes from Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's.
Cold and, think about these poor firemen out there in the freezing cold. And they all came. I mean, it wasn't only the Great Barrington fire, but Monterey, Egremont, Stockbridge, and Sheffield fire departments were called. Actually, they didn't have to come. Sorry, but they were all ready to come. And Lennox did provide a rapid intervention team, and Sheffield provided station coverage. So they
just mutual aid.
Mutual aid, right.
All right, let's move to Pittsfield now. Your correspondent about one man making a difference.
Oh yes. Well, our we have a writer who's really great and an
Hannah Van Sickle.
Hannah Van Sickle, and she was covering. She covers education. She, in fact, is a teacher herself, and she was covering a movement in Pittsfield to where this fellow Jerome Edgerton is looking to make a difference for young men and kids in the Pittsfield school system, and so he's established a sort of athletic training program that will kind of get kids proud of themselves and involved in a healthy activity. So she wrote a really moving story about how he has like 8 to 12 kids involved in this all the time, and it's this is the kind of thing that is a very hopeful enterprise. It's good to see someone taking this initiative,
It is. I want to go to your next story because it ties in with something that's happening around here. There is rumor, and it's a pretty found rumor, that somebody won $1 million on a lottery ticket in Millerton, New York.
Wow.
And the reason the rumor's out there is they scanned the ticket, and I came back as a winner, and I guess that registers at that place. But they didn't jump for joy there. So maybe they just didn't want people to know about it yet. But that $1 million leads to your $1 million in Great Barrington, where
Well, what is the connection?
because it's $1 million.
No, it's $1 million. Right.
An individual won $1 million, but Great Barrington is really going to have millions of dollars that they're going to have to spend. Oh my gosh, what can they spend it on?
I mean, I think this is a terrible problem for Great Barrington, where they're making more money than they ever thought they would. We call it the cannabis quandary. And I mean, we now have, I don't know, 3 or 4 outlets that sells marijuana, and the lineup is impressive at these outlets, even in the snow, and the town gets a cut of the sales, and it's quite impressive.
Yeah, yes, it is.
And the question now is, what to do with this windfall. And that is, they haven't decided yet, but there are all kinds of ideas. One would be to fix one of the bridges that is causing so much grief because it's made getting around in town so difficult because the bridge needs repair, and it's closed. So they're now entertaining all kinds of suggestions about what to do with this windfall. One is simply to lower taxes.
Well, lower taxes, but I think that there would be a general uprising if they didn't at least fix the longest bridge that has been shut down. What's some of that money?
Well, the most crucial, there are actually 2 that are shut down, but there's one. One is the Cottage Street Bridge, which is not so desperate because there's another one a block away. But there is the Division Street Bridge, which is shut down, and then there's some question about the solidity of the Brown Bridge, which is the big bridge that comes into Great Barrington.
Yeah,
that's a state issue, though.
Yeah, but still, it is a state issue. But we're terrified that that's going to get closed too. So.
Well, the autobiography of Great Barrington, A Bridge Too Far. That's what it says.
Well, that's true, but that's what I guess that's the perils of living. Having a river, twine its way through the center of town.
It happened to Falls Village a couple of years ago when they had to replace the bridge, and it literally disconnected Falls Village from the Lakeville-Salisbury area, caused immense problems for EMS, for school buses, and everything like that. So those bridges are so
And
important. Yeah.
it takes quite a while to fix them too. I mean, it's not an easy, 30-day repair.
There's a little bridge that crosses a brook across the street from our house that got repaired in about 2014, and it took over a year for them to repair. And this is not a major thoroughfare, this bridge. So, we're looking at very big bridges that need to be repaired, and it's a mess, and it's it threatens the economy of Great Barrington and of a number of individual businesses, which we have mentioned.
Let us move on to Monument Mountain Regional High School again. It's not about academics, SAT, or grades, but an innovative program that puts students to work.
Right. Now, David has to go because he's got to take...
Yeah.
Well, go to work, David.
Okay.
He has to go take his boy to school.
That's
so
right.
I will finish with this last story, which I think we touched on last week, but it's certainly worth revisiting. This is a new program at Monument Mountain, and Monument Mountain is partnering with a very interesting organization in Great Barrington called Greenagers, and also with another very interesting organization called Construct and the Railroad Street Youth Project. Sorry, the list keeps getting longer. But this is an effort to try to introduce high school kids to the world of work by having them work hands-on at construction sites and working farms 2 to 4 afternoons a week, where they will earn both class credits, in some cases stipends, but certainly learning skills in the world of work, real life skills. And apparently the kids were really clamoring for this. And this is not just for kids who think that they'll never go to college and are looking for vocational education. This is also, it's open to everybody, but I think the thinking behind it is that no one is preparing, and especially for kids who are not going to go on to college, that nothing is preparing them for the world of work. I think we all see this, and I think we mentioned this last week,
Yep.
that you try to find a construction worker or a plumber or a skilled laborer of any kind. They're becoming more and more scarce. And the other problem is that because they haven't learned sort of what the environment, the work environment is, their attitudes, employers complain constantly about the work ethic and the attitude of the workers that they are able to hire. So, this is an effort, for vocational. And really, as I said, it's open to both students who are in both college and vocational tracks. I think it's very interesting, and I wish that this would spread to other schools because vocational training has been left behind.
Well, vocational training, as we're finding out more and more and more and more, is there's a lot of jobs out there that pay incredibly great wages that go unfilled. So it's like there's two things that I don't understand why vocational training and nursing are not more on the topics, because there are thousands and thousands of jobs that pay far more than $10, $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour. Thousands of jobs that pay very well. And
there's a terrible shortage of nurses all over the country, and likely to become worse as the current nurses start to retire and the population ages. And nursing, I know that, there's a concern that people who take care of the elderly are underpaid, but nurses are well paid. And there are male and female nurses now, with very little stigma against men. I know I had a procedure at Fairview, and my nurses were men, which was very interesting. So this is, I don't know. We've had such an emphasis on everybody having to go to college in the last, really in this whole post-Second World War period. The goal was for everybody to go to college, and some people are just not suited.
And they can make more money by going to vocational school.
Not going to college, and they don't have college tuition debt when they come out. Although many of these professions do require, they require not internships, apprenticeships.
Apprenticeships, but it's just like anything
else.
But you're being paid. You're being paid, yeah. All right. Well, that is the Berkshire Edge on air, but all these stories and many, 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 many more at the BerkshireEdge.com.
Yes, and actually, do we have a minute?
We have about 10 seconds.
Oh, never mind. Okay. All right. Well, talk to you next week.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
That is the Berkshire Edge on air here on Robin Hood Radio.